Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are very excited to have you all here launch University of North Florida Sport Management Program Sport Industry Webinar Series. 19 teams have had vacancies for their head coach position in the past 3 years, and only 2 were filled with a minority candidate. In this webinar, we have Coach Hue Jackson, Coach Alvis Whitted, Coach Ryan Davis, and Coach Jason Hardee, who will share their experiences with diversity as coaches and how we can tackle the challenges that the sport industry is facing. I want to welcome our group of panelists. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Doing great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you guys for being here again. I am sure I speak for all of us when I say we know your time is precious. So thank you very much for sharing your time, insight, and experiences with us. With so many young professionals entering the sport industry, aside from the obvious challenges of this pandemic, we hope to inspire you not to let the odds define your path, provide professionals who share real-time experiences, and to give non-minorities an insight on how they can be a part of the change. Throughout the webinar, a poll will be available for our audience to participate in, and the results will be revealed at the end of the webinar with the panelists having a chance to comment. We also encourage that you send any of your questions for our coaches through the chat, and time permitting, we will get as many of them answered as possible. Although the following questions that we have are targeted to each specific coach, we welcome each of our coaches to give their insight as well. To get things started, we have a question for all of our coaches. What challenges do you think minority coaches face trying to climb the coaching ladder? Coach Jackson, you want to start?
Oh, wow. Yes, I will. It's a tremendous challenge. I mean, when you look at the National Football League and NCAA Division I football, in the 100-year history of the National Football League, there's only been 18 minority head coaches. And if you look over in NCAA football today, there's only 14 Division I coaches. So I just think those numbers itself tell you it's a hard climb. And it's how do we change this? You know, the truth to power situation that's really going on. I think people first got to understand problem awareness, that it is a problem. And then I think, you know, the group cause, the next thing you got to have a cause. You got to understand what's going to be the cause and how you're going to deal with it. I think people have to have empathy for what's going on and what has gone on. Because I think that's so important. And then you have to have a strategy to fix it. Because I personally believe this goes way back before anybody that's on this panel talking about minorities in sports. And I think you got to really dig into that, because what's normal in coaching doesn't mean it's right. Because what's normal has been people that don't look like us have had more opportunities, have been in positions of authority, you know, in those leadership positions. And so there needs to be change. And on top of that, then people are going to have to make a sacrifice. Somebody's going to have to sacrifice to come out and really dig into this issue in order to make it better.
Any of our other coaches have anything to say?
Yeah, I'll go. I feel like for me, even as a junior college coach now, and I coached in high school also, I feel like white coaches can fail and move up as they fail. That's just kind of been a thing I've noticed. Like they can, and I don't see that with a lot of black coaches in terms of if I fail, I can get a better job, or if I'm a head coach, I can fail and then I could still be a coordinator, or heck, I can even go be a head coach somewhere else. And I feel like when black coaches finally get to that point, they get knocked back down far past either a coordinator, position coach, and all of a sudden they got to climb all the way back up to where they were previously and the road is even that much longer. And it even happens in high school and college. High school coaches too, for all of us. I've talked to several of my buddies. They're just like, oh, I got let go as a head coach. Now I can't even go be a head coach in high school. So it's one of those things of you can't get discouraged by what's going on. You got to just put one foot in front of the other and just keep and working on your craft and just stay, not necessarily stay in your lane, but like Coach Jackson said, somebody's got to make a change in the system and what's going on, obviously. But as Black coaches, we can't get discouraged about, obviously, we know what's in front of us and what the situation is. So I guess that's kind of like what I take in from it, like just coaching every day, that I'm really there for the kids. And if I chase that, just me being for the kids and helping them succeed, then everything will be okay.
Coach
Yeah.
Davis, do you have any challenges?
Yeah, I think first I want to thank Coach Jackson for sharing that statistic. That's the first time I'd heard that in the 100-year history of the NFL with Black coaches. So I'm going to echo what these gentlemen are saying. It's really hard to fail forward as a minority coach. It really is. And so I was very fortunate because I worked for a guy at the University of Alabama, and I'll never forget this, what he said to me, but he told me, he says, if you want to be a head strength coach, a Division I head strength coach, you better be twice as good, and don't be upset if you get half the opportunities. And now the thing about this is, at the time, the guy that said this to me, his name is Scott Cochran. He was at the time, I think he was 28 or 29 years old, was a white guy from Louisiana. But he had printed out that the USA Today Division I head strength coach, like the salary report. And when we sat down, he just said, look, I'm telling you because look at the people up here, because there aren't a lot of people that look like you. And I'm not telling you this because I want to discourage you. I'm telling you this because I want you to be prepared for what you have lying ahead. And so the opportunities are less, and times it gets frustrating personally because you feel like you're around people, or you come up with a group of people that maybe you're as qualified or even more qualified than, and you look around that kind of room of the class you came up with, and you're like, man, all these guys are getting opportunities. Why is my phone not ringing? Or you start going on interviews and you start hearing every reason in the book of why it wasn't you. Man, you interviewed great. You know, you were our guy. You were our number one guy, but there's always a but to follow it up. There's always another edge of that sword. And then once you get in, like I said, it's really, really difficult to fail forward as a Black head strength coach, as a Black head football coach, because those opportunities can be less and can be few and far between.
And Coach Whitted, what do you have for challenges?
Well, I just think that, am I unmuted? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I think just for me and my experience, you know, we do get opportunities, but more oftentimes than not, most coaches and people in positions of power, you know, they're comfortable with, you know, hiring guys that they know, or people that they know that talk like them, that look like them, and act like them. And, you know, I just think that sometimes people, especially in the climate of our society right now, you know, you have to really try to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and really like going out and looking beyond, you know, race, you know, and not just hire somebody because I know them, that I feel comfortable with them, but really just, you know, can this guy do the job? Is he good at his craft? You know, like Coach Hardee was saying, is he an expert at what he does? And really just, you know, getting out there and just saying, hey, you know, I'm gonna look at this guy and not look at him by race, but just go out on a limb. And I think that takes vision. I think it takes foresight. I think it takes people that are gonna go outside the norm and you know, do something different. You know, especially with the climate that we're in right now in regards to our society, as far as race relations and just everything that's going on right now. You know, it's going to take some progressive thinkers, someone that's going to decide to be the change that we want to see. And yeah, if you look at any NFL roster, if you look at any college football roster, I mean, I would say 70% of the athletes are African American. In my opinion, who better than to, have an African American coach, someone that can relate, someone that has, obviously, been through some of the things that they've gone through, growing up in America. So that's just kind of my input. I think that some of the challenges are, guys that are in those positions to make decisions. They're just so used to being around and hiring guys that they know and that they've been comfortable with, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to look outside the box and hire someone that I know that can do just as good a job, if not better.
Thank you for your answers, coaches. Our next question is for Coach Jackson. What are your thoughts on the NFL's Rooney Rule and the new incentives?
Well, I think there's some that I like. I like the fact that it's mandatory that you interview 2 minority head coaches. I like the fact that they're going to create intern positions on staff for minorities at the quarterback position so that they can get into those rooms, because there's only 2 minority quarterback coaches in pro football of 32 teams. So I think that is really good. The things I don't like, I didn't like the fact that they were talking about giving draft picks for coaches. I think you just cheapened the opportunity. Nobody wants to feel like that I have to be bidded on to have a job. I mean, where's this coming from? Why can't we do it on the strength of our ability and that way? And so I think that was really hard. And I know that's off the table. I know that was part of the discussion. I know they have shut that down for sure because it was really a negative issue for the National Football League. So, but do I like the other retooling of the Rooney Rule? Yes. But to me, it still needs to be a little bit more intentional. And until it is, I still don't see the change happening. So you interview now 2 candidates, where before you could only interview 1 candidate. I mean, what change are we really making here, in my mind? Do I think they're trying to do something to make the optics look right? Yes, they need to. But at the same time, I think there's a bigger issue sitting in front of all of us that I don't think we really dive into. And I'll keep saying it until everybody goes back and understand how the league was started and understand that what was normal, as all these coaches just alluded to, is what has still been at this time. It means it's not right. Normal is not right. And so until people understand that what we've done normally in the past and the way we've done things is not going to move the needle at all, until we do that, nothing will change, in my opinion.
Do you have any examples of incentives that you think would actually help?
I don't think pro football is an incentive situation. I think coaches want to be hired on their expertise, knowledge, merit. I think my incentive is there's 32 teams. Half of them are minority coaches and half of them are Caucasian coaches. And then my point is, I was in this league when all of a sudden they said, let's take the head out of the game, right? And I'm not a doctor, but I know you can't take a head off a particular person. But they mandated that into the National Football League. And players struggled, coaches struggled coaching it, but they went on for 5 years. They gathered all the data that they needed, and they said, you know what? This helped because of concussions. And the National Football League high-fived themselves and said, way to go. Well, why can't we do the same thing and be intentional when it comes to hiring? Let's do the same thing. If there's 4 jobs, give 2 of them to minority coaches, 2 of them to Caucasian coaches. Let's look 5 years from now and see where we are. And I'm sure there'll be some that fail. There'll be some that did really well. That is fair. There's nothing unfair about that. So to me, that's the solution, because then you take all the gray out, because minorities now feel like, we're on the even playing field as everybody else. If you did it that way, that is the only way to make things right. Do the same things for them, for us, I should say, as you do for them. That's what this is.
Thank you. Do any of the other coaches want to comment on the Rooney Rule?
You know,
Okay.
I do think what Coach alluded to, I do think that, you know, there aren't many minority quarterback coaches, you know, in the National Football League, and not many in college football. I think they're heading in the right direction in that regard. But I also agree, it's just, you know, there shouldn't be an incentive, you know, for interviewing. It goes back to you have to have someone that's going to think outside of the box and create change at the end of the day. That's just what I truly believe in. But there are some good things and some bad things about the interview, like Coach was saying.
Stephanie, I don't want to make a big point about this, but it makes me feel like a slave. You're going to buy me, okay? And I'm going to come work for you. And when you're done with me, you're going to release me. That makes no sense. None whatsoever.
I see. Anyone else have anything they want to put in on that?
He said it all with that last one.
I might have to
Said it
that
all.
one.
We said this is a keep it real session,
It
right?
is. That's why I said, hey, that's why I said he said it all right there. Shoot, that ain't nothing else to say on the topic.
Okay, well then I'll go on to the next question, because that one seems like he dropped the mic on it. Coach Davis, as a strength and conditioning coach, you interact with all positions on the team. Can you talk about the importance of all athletes having a diverse coaching staff?
I knew you were going to ask me to follow up Coach Jackson to that. I was like, man, I hope she doesn't call on me next. No, I do. So what I'll say about my position is we're the only other position in the program other than the head coach that gets access to every athlete that comes through there. And I do think the diversity is important. Everybody on this call knows that within a football program, you have pockets and clusters of people that work with your players from the head coach all the way down. So the head coach, the position coaches, you have a bunch of player development people. You'll have a bunch of academics people. You'll have, you know, a bunch of sports medicine people and performance people. I think it's important, even from my staff standpoint, the NCAA allows us 5 full-time strength coaches to work with the athletes. I think it's important that they don't all look like me and come from places that I come from, because you heard Coach Whitted talk about the roster earlier. And if you have a roster that looks one way and a supporting cast that looks another way, there's a missing link somewhere. So I think when you look at building a staff, it's really important to understand the roster you have in terms of the backgrounds your players are coming from, maybe area of the country that your players are coming from, experiences that they've had growing up. You know, I think ethnicity is really important to that, because at the end of the day, our job is to raise young men. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're developing young people. And I can't develop someone in an area that I don't have experience in. So if I don't have people on my staff that have those experiences to offer that development to those players, then I think we're missing a link somewhere. So I do think it's important, which is why it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me to look at certain teams in the NFL and to look at how those rosters are made up, and in college football and across the board in football, look at how the rosters are made up, yet the senior leadership isn't made up the same way. Well, if we say that we're developing young people, because if you poll coaches across the country, we all know that we got to win or we're gone. We know that. But if you ask them what their job is as a coach, I guarantee in some way, shape, or form, they're going to talk about developing a player on and off the field. Well, how can you develop a player off the field if your supporting cast doesn't match the actors that you got in the play? I didn't mean to get on a soapbox.
Go ahead.
That's why we're all here, right?
I mean, kind of just to piggyback on what Coach Davis said, I think the Western states do a good job of hiring that way in terms of like the position coaches. Because if you look at Western states, we have a lot of Polynesian players that play on the West Coast, Arizona, not on the West, but Western states, Utah. And I feel like they do a decent job of that in terms of hiring Polynesian coaches. They hire black, but they're all positional coaches. So I feel like they're using black coaches and Polynesian coaches as recruiting tools because they know they have to have those type of players in those areas to be good. Like Coach Davis said, at the end of the day, they have to win. You have to win. So they have to have Polynesian coaches. You have to have black coaches on your staff. That's just a fact. So are we developing the young men that we do by having those coaches? Of course you are, but it's no Polynesians really are head coaches and none are black coaches. And then you go up, no presidents or Polynesian, hardly any presidents of the schools or black coaches. So it's just kind of like what Coach Davis said. It's the who's leading the charge. You're trying to develop young men. That's what we get into the business for. Initially, I feel like that's all we do. But are we really developing the young man to the point?
I have a question, if I may interject, for Coach Whitted. What do you think that minorities, wow, that was a hard word, non-minorities can do to frame it for future sport managers who come in to make it better? I mean, this is an issue for all of us. It does not just affect one group of people, just the minorities. If we don't all help, it's never going to change. What do you suggest that we as non-minorities can do to help with that?
Well, number one, I think you have to, first of all, look inside yourself. You know, you have to want to be the change that you want to see. Secondly, understand where we are in our country and our state right now. You know, there's a big disparity in a lot of ways. And I think you have to have, again, foresight and just the heart to say, hey, I want to be a part of this change. Now, how do I go about facilitating it? Well, I'm gonna, you know, think outside the box and hire someone that, you know, I know has the right qualifications, that is an expert at what he does, that's gonna do a great job and is relatable. You know, I know that, yeah, he's an African American, and yeah, you know, my roster is, you know, 65-70% African American. You know, he's relatable. You know, he's been through some of the experiences. He can relate to being a black man in America. He's educated. You know, he's not the cliche that, you know, he's out in the streets doing stuff that he doesn't need to be. He's successful. And like Coach Davis said, you know, for us, we have to be twice as good at everything. You know, really, we have no margin for error, so to speak. So I just think, it just takes vision and the heart to say, hey, I see where we are in our day and age, in our society, you know, but what can I do to make that change within myself and then the people that are surrounding me, you know, in my department or wherever it is. That's what I think.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask one more question? And this is, again, about what Coach Jackson talked about earlier about the incentives. It was funny, you're the second person this week that told me that it makes it feel like slavery, the incentives. And but in addition to that, do you feel that the incentives cheapen your contribution? I mean, if I have to pay someone to take you on, that does not make you feel valued with your contribution. How do you feel about that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it makes you feel dirty, filthy, like you're insignificant, and we're more than that. You know, we as coaches, we pour so much of our heart and soul into the people that we interact with, we engage with on a daily basis. And I know for myself, you know, coming from the background that I've come from, you know, I have a father that's in prison to this day. I really didn't have that direction. I didn't have that that person in my life to show me the way. It was coaches, it was guys that I played with, it was people that I was around that showed me the way. And, that's why I do what I do. And that's why these guys that are on this panel, this is the reason why they do what they do. So for someone to say, we're going to do this as an incentive, it does cheapen it, and it doesn't feel good, and it's not right.
Yes,
And
thank
Denise,
you.
I think any coach, minority coach, and this is one man's opinion, would ever take a job like that, because he would have an issue with his locker room, first and foremost. I mean, we couldn't look at our players in the face and feel like we earned this. I mean, you wouldn't be the leader you are in front of those men because they know how you got the job. You got the job because we gave up 3 first-round draft picks for you. Are you good enough? I mean, those are legitimate things that would happen. So I don't see a coach ever saying, I would take a job in that type of environment.
It also diminishes your role as a leader for other minority players who are coming up and trying to look to you for answers. Thank you so much for that. Go ahead, Stephanie. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. No, you're fine. So our next question is for Coach Whitted. And it's, as you know, there are an appalling lack of diversity in FBS head coaches and coordinator positions. What changes do you think need to be made to promote more diversity in those positions?
Well, I think like Coach Jackson, kind of alluded to earlier, just having, Black quarterback coaches. There aren't many Black quarterback coaches. There aren't many Black coordinators at all. I think it's appalling. And, we are, and I think there's this perception of we can't do the job, or we're not smart enough to think like a white coordinator or a white quarterback coach. And that's totally wrong. I mean, we do enough study. We know this game front and back to where we can do just as good a job, if not better. I just think there's that perception of, he can't coach a quarterback. He can't coach, Black quarterbacks can't do this, and so on and so forth. I just think there's a perception out there that we can't get it done. And I think that perception needs to be erased by, again, someone going out on a limb and hiring a Black quarterback coach and hiring a Black coordinator who can call plays, who can analyze, who can do all the other things that a white coordinator can do, and if not better. I just think we need to erase the stigma of, because there aren't really a whole bunch of Black quarterbacks, and the ones that do play, they're relegated to just being athletes instead of being a passer or a progressional. There's just so many things that are out there. I just think that we need to erase that thought process, and by doing so, going out and hiring guys that have put in the time, that can coach, can coach any aspect of ball, whether it be the offensive line, whether it be the receiver, whether it be whatever. I just think that stigma needs to be erased.
Just to follow up with that same question, with very qualified minority candidates who are being passed over already, do you believe more training should be a part of the solution?
I mean, you could say that, but I think that any coach that's gotten to this game, they are well versed in their craft in every aspect. We're in every meeting with the head coach, coordinator, so on and so forth. Again, I just think it goes back to the comfort of someone being comfortable knowing, hey, he's coordinated at this particular level, or I know this guy, in a past situation. Whereas like really just doing your research and doing your diligence on who's the best guy for the job, what does he possess that can help our football team or my organization.
I believe part of the question was also directed at the fellowship program, because it seems odd to think that you would need more training to get the opportunities in coaching, whereas you already have such gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Such capable people who are being passed over constantly. So how do you feel about that? The fellowship program itself.
I think it's a great. I think the Bill Walsh Coaching Fellowship is awesome because it puts different coaches from different levels in a place where they can see different aspects of a NFL meeting room or an NFL coaching staff, to be a part of that, to see the decision making, to see all of the the ins and outs of what it is on a daily basis, to manage a football team. I think it's awesome, and it helps those guys prepare. When they're going back to their prospective jobs, to help them get better, to help them be better decision makers, whatever it may be. I think it's a great experience. I was a part of it myself, and it was an invaluable experience.
Do any of our other coaches believe that the fellowship or just training in general is a solution?
I feel like kind of Coach Whitted said, the only problem I have with it, I'm actually currently applying for it to go into that program. That's something I'd like to do, but I find it weird or ironic how it's during like August, the preseason. So now we're taken away from our team that we're trying to develop our young men, that we're trying to get the hours that we gotta, because especially with me dealing with 18 to 20-year-olds, you gotta be hands-on with them constantly, all the time. And now I'm taking, and it makes you feel bad that I'm taking, trying to take opportunity to better myself, but I'm also neglecting the players that I went into their homes. I've called on the house, that I'm neglecting them. When I told their parents that I would be there for them, that I would always, be a mentor, treat them like kind of like my little brothers or like one of my own. So the time when they do it, I don't necessarily agree with, but you have no choice to do it during that time in August or, not this year, during OTAs in like the spring and summer. I wish it was more of, I guess, during like after the season would be good, or kind of in the later months when our season is over. And then I feel like you have more people applying or that could do it. I just feel like right now it's kind of like, if like for me, I work, I coach, but I also have a 9-to-5 job where I'm operations manager for the Moscone Center building event center. So I got to take off from that and my team all to do an internship that I want to do that would be beneficial to me in every area. So I think the time and when to do it is tough, but you got to make sacrifices, which I understand. But then again, man, can we just do it like during the spring or during another time? But like Coach Whitted said, I need that experience in terms of how the meetings are run, how different coaches are, how they relate, how they talk to players, especially for me, somebody that wants to move up one day, that wants to continue growing as a coach. So
I think it's important to understand that there's going to be two factors now. You're going to have the minority fellowship coaches, which normally starts in the spring, because they normally bring you to OTAs, and from OTAs, and you come in for training camp, as Jason was alluding to. But then there's going to be the intern coaches, who are contracted coaches who are placed on a staff, 2 on a team, to be there for 2 years with a particular team before they transition on. So I think, Jason, for you, just advice, you got to decide which one of those you want to be involved with as you apply, because it's 2 different tracks there for opportunities. And I think you have to understand that. The Bill Walsh Coaching Fellowship, I started in it. It was important to me, but it didn't. It's really interesting. Most minority coaches who are involved in this, they normally don't get to be around the quarterback.
I got you.
That's where the other issue is. They're normally running back coaches, receiver coaches, defensive back coaches, D-line coaches. And it's one of the reasons why we don't have very many. I mean, as Alvis pointed out not too long ago, and I'll keep using the word, it's just not normal. It's not normal for a Black man to coach a quarterback, a Caucasian quarterback, who is the face of the franchise. Let's just be honest. That's what it hasn't been. Not saying that we don't have people that can do it. We just haven't been afforded those opportunities. It's like we're herded into certain positions. Go coach your running backs, go coach your receivers, go coach your defensive backs, go be a linebacker coach or D-line coach. There's 30% minority coaches in the National Football League. And you can go find where they're housed at. It's so easy to find. And so the ones who break out of that, I think we'd all be surprised how they really got out of it. You know, how did I ever become a quarterback coach in Baltimore? You know, that really springboarded my career because I was very intentional in making that happen. And I think that's where we have to go, because when you only have 2 in the National Football League and you only have 7 minority coordinators, just coordinators. I didn't say quarterback coaches in Division I football. That tells you a lot. So I'm gonna say it again. It's not normal for us to be in those positions. So whether you're in fellowship or whether you're in intern, whatever this is, until we solve the problem, okay, and really talk about what the problem is, I don't see much change happening. And I hate to say that on here. I don't want to seem like Debbie Downer or anything like that. But at the same time, this has been going on for years. I mean, I'm 54 years old. I've been coaching for 33 straight years. And I've had these same discussions when I was 22, 23. And to me, here we are talking about this again. So that tells me something. We have not solved the problem, because I don't think we truly understand what the problem is, first and foremost. I think we all do, but we don't really want to talk about it. Let's just put it like that. We don't want to dive into it and call people out on their junk, because that's what it's been for years. And because people don't want to put themselves in a position where their value goes backwards. Let's just be honest. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my money. If I say the wrong thing, people are going to hold this against me. I won't be able to get a job later on. I can't. Hey, looky here. I mean, you're not getting the job you want anyway. So what's the difference?
You end up calling out, what you calling out is the owners, who are 97 or 98% white males. There's only like 2 minority owners. So you calling out the head people.
Go ahead on, Jason. You better than me. There's no minority.
Oh, I thought it was 2.
Hello.
It's just 2 months. Yeah.
Let's get this right. I don't think there's any. Okay. So just like there's only 2 GMs that's minority.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm gonna say it again. It's not normal. So people that are making decisions don't look like us. They don't know. And I get tired of hearing people saying they don't know you. You got to get to know them. Hold up now. We're talking about billionaire people that got more resources than anybody in the world. If they wanted to get to know you, they would get to know you. Mm-hmm. Hello. I get tired of hearing that. Well, you got to, if they really want to know me, they would get to know me. You can, all this Zoom that's going on right now, if you want to know me, get me on a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's what I mean by being intentional. If you want to change this, it can change, but do you really want to? That's the problem. That's what everybody's got to ask themselves. Do you really want change? Because if you do, no one can tell me this would still be going on today. Everybody knows it's been going on for years. What's the difference? Well, the climate's changed because everything that's been going on in our country today. That's why it's more of an issue. And every time we look around, I mean, Airbnb didn't get hired, right? So everybody goes, wow, how can that be? They just won a Super Bowl. Well, I guarantee you a lot of coaches are not surprised that he didn't. We get it. We've been there. We know what this is.
So we have one more question, and we're going to ask Coach Davis, how do you personally encourage your athletes who want to pursue a career in coaching?
So I don't encourage or inspire them any differently than the athlete that wants to be a lawyer or a dentist. But, you know, when they want to get into coaching, we've got a guy on our football team right now. I think it's important because I can offer a true snapshot of what that's going to be like. So he sees it from the player perspective, but now I get an opportunity to show them what that's going to look like from the coaching perspective. So when they come to me and say, Coach, this is what I want to do, you know, I think it's my job to give them an experience where they can truly see This is what it's like, because the truth is, so if we're going to train the team for 2 hours, let's just say we're going to have a 2-hour training block. It may take us as a staff 10 to 12 hours to get that 2 hours done with the entire team. So the player might only see the 2 hours from the player perspective, but he's not seeing that the guy's got to be in the office an hour before that. He's not seeing the planning, the preparation, the execution of how everything goes. He just gets to see that 1 2-hour piece of it. So for me, it's, let me give you a snapshot of what this is going to be like. Let me speak some truth to you on what you're going to face. Let me give you some solutions to how you may deal with some of those challenges, and then give you the truth of, there's going to be things that you face that I don't really have answers for, but this is what you may see. And I think that's how we go about, motivating guys or inspiring guys that say that they want to get into this coaching profession, because we want guys to be successful. If they do it, we want guys to be successful. So we're going to be real with them.
Does anyone else have anything for encouraging their athletes in their future careers in coaching, or just in general?
That's why we're on this call, right? I mean, we're doing everything we can to make a difference, to make an impact, so that these young African-American aspiring coaches have a legitimate opportunity in the future. Someone has to pave the way for these men to have a chance. And I know I want to. I mean, I've been a head coach twice in the National Football League. That's kind of unheard of. And I want to give someone the chance to do that, but be successful, because that's the key to it all. I mean, getting these jobs sometime obviously hasn't been easy neither. But once you get them, the key to it is you got to win, and that's what it all comes down to. But I think our young minority aspiring coaches deserve every opportunity in the future to be whatever they feel they want to be in coaching, if we help create the right platform for them moving forward.
Okay, so thank you, coaches, for all of your answers. And we still have just a few more minutes. So Denise, are there any questions in the chat from our audience?
Definitely. I have a few questions, and we'll see how much time we have. The first question would have been from, let's see, what do we have here? Grayson Obregon. It says, how often were you afforded opportunities as you rose up coaching ranks, and were there any that you went out on a limb and made yourself an opportunity? So was it, I don't know if that makes any sense. Were you afforded opportunities, or did you have to mostly try to find your own way? I think that's what the question is. And this could be to anyone, really. I mean, Coach Hardee, you're still sort of getting there, trying to climb that ladder. So this would probably be interesting for you as well.
Right. I guess the opportunities I was given. So I had got into kind of like I was too hard on kids kind of thing in high school. When my first job, and then I kind of got knocked down to not a lesser team, but I had friends who picked me up and encouraged me. And at College of San Mateo, I got lucky with this one, really, because I played there, and it's a white coach who's a great man who hired me and didn't care what happened. He was there willing to mentor me and help me out and become a better coach, along with my other coach, a head coach who's like my second dad. So I feel like the opportunities I received, kind of just moving forward, if I have to look on it, I need to, be more assertive in trying to move up. But the ones that I've gotten so far and the opportunities I've gotten, it's all because somebody's taking a chance on me, or I know somebody or something. So it feels like I need to build that network up in terms of trying to get those opportunities. But just kind of to answer the question, it's really all on who you know, to be honest, and getting in that way. That was the only way I was able to get the job I have now. And it didn't mean I couldn't do it, because I was getting guys scholarships in high school and doing great there, and then move on now where I'm on one of the top 5 teams in the country, top 3 teams in all of junior college, and nothing's changed about me. I'm still getting guys scholarships. I'm still, doing great, but it's just the opportunity came with my coach who knows and loves me and took a chance on me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll,
I'm sorry.
I'll
Go
add
ahead.
to it as well. Every coach in this panel, they obviously had a different journey in regards to how they, got to where they are now. And myself, when I first got into coaching, I started at the high school level, then went on to Division III, and then was a graduate assistant with quality control at UCLA, and then I got my first full-time job. So to answer is really, guys, just being humble and just work, be about the work, really diving into it, being and gaining knowledge and really trying to be the very best, being an expert at your skill and at your craft, just knowing what everything about the position that you're coaching. And then, that becomes who you are. And you build your resume as a coach by, number one, how you develop your players. And, I've been fortunate that I've had the opportunity to develop some really good football players that have gone on and graduated and that are now playing in the National Football League. But I think that's the biggest thing is really just doing the work, putting the work in, and it'll show for itself. The cream always rises to the top. And like I said, just being intentional about what you're trying to do. I think, but if you put the work in and you're in it for the right reasons and really developing people in all aspects, from the mental, the physical, and the spiritual as well. So that's just my input.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions, and these could probably be directed at you as well. Coach, I almost said Dr. Whitted. I'm so used to speaking to your wife.
Yeah,
Coach Whitted.
Doctor in the house.
I have another question, and this is really in regards of regards universities in particular. We have one question that says, do you believe a pipeline out of universities should be set up to establish more opportunities for people of color? And what is the University of Wisconsin specifically doing to promote diversity and the Black Lives Matter movement on campus? So these are two questions.
Wow, that's a lot. One thing I will say in regards just to our athletic department and our football program is, number one, being aware of everything that's going on and really having those conversations. I remember, when everything was happening with George Floyd, I thought to myself, how do I approach this situation, in regards to my minority players and as well as my non-minority players. And I really just had to start the conversation and really just put it out there. And as we moved forward, we all got on the same page and started addressing it and started having those hard conversations. And as that progressed on and moved forward, the university started, making changes and, obviously identifying the Black Lives Matter movement, changing the logo on the university crest from a white W to a black W. So there are things that are being in place that to, number one, know, what is going on, and there are changes happening. Things are being identified, and really what I think most of the African American players want to know is that, hey, people have their back, their teammates have their back, and everyone is, for them and not, about the negative aspect of everything that's going on in our society. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I think our university is doing a great job with that, of really recognizing that and making changes to support this movement and the climate that our country is in right now.
Coach Jackson, how do you feel about the question about the pipeline with the universities? Do you think that would be something that would encourage more university to make bigger strides in trying to solve this issue, or what do you think?
Yes and no, because I mean, I know people talk about pipelines a lot, but there is no pipeline.
Yeah.
I mean, who's in the line? You know what I mean? I mean, I hear that term being thrown around all the time when they say pipeline, but you have to create it at the highest level in order to have people move up from the bottom up, right? To move up through it. So if there's no, if there's nobody at the highest level in the line, so we have two guys that are quarterback coaches. We have two guys that are coordinators, and one of them's a play caller and one of them's not. So how do you get younger people to be in a pipeline up here? Because they don't come from college to the National Football League. That hasn't happened yet, right? So and it should, because it happens the other way. So I keep going back to that being intentional, and what happens for the Caucasian coach, and I can just use it as an example from LSU that goes to the Carolina Panthers and becomes the coordinator right now. That should happen for minority coach. Tony Elliott, who's at Clemson, who's won 2 national championships and been ultra successful. Why isn't he a coordinator in the National Football League and making $3 million? Let's just make it even. Let's do things the right way all the way through, and then you can start talking about pipelines. There are no pipelines.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Coach Jackson, can you hear me?
Yes.
Coach Jackson, can you just follow up, because you've touched on this, and so if you were the commissioner tomorrow, and you could implement, because one of the things they're talking about is making all 32 teams have diversity plans, sort of what you're talking about, which also really has to, I think, be adopted by ownership, right? So how are ownership groups diversified, and how are organizations diversified? So if you were the commissioner tomorrow, could you just outline a few specific plans? And you've talked about some of them. If you could be the commissioner tomorrow and the owners hire and fire you, but you got a minute, if you could tell us.
Okay, Christy, you want to put me on the spot, because I think you know me pretty well, and I would personally blow this whole thing up. Because I think you have to start over. I really do. I think you have to put men of color in positions of ownership, first and foremost. You have to put more men in positions of general manager. Right now, they are the 2 key decision makers in football. You have to go to college football and ask for there to be more ADs, men of color. I mean, if we're really going to want to see change, that is the only way you're going to see change, in my opinion. I know people, you can't say, well, it's my opinion, because how else can you see change? I need somebody that looks like me, that can relate to me and understand where I'm coming from, and has understand my background just a little bit more than a Caucasian person would. And so it is no different. And that's why I don't fault them for what's going on. I'm talking about the Caucasian coaches, because the people who look like them, that sound like them, that have some of the similar experiences, are the people who are picking them. There's nothing wrong with that. We just have, I'm gonna say it again, just gotta be intentional about putting people in position to give people opportunities as you move forward. So I would start over. And I might not make it right away, half and half, but my goal would be to get it to where it's half and half, where there's 16 minority owners, where there's 16 minority GMs, there's 16 minority head coaches. I hope I live to see that someday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, back to Stephanie.
Did you want, Dr. Sweeney, did you want to ask your last question?
Oh, I do. I have one question in the chat that's good. Actually, Michael, if Michael puts up the slide, I'm looking for Ryan Bailey.
Right here.
Oh, hi, Ryan.
Hi.
Ryan has a really great question. that we get asked a lot. We talk a lot about having a football team here at UNF, so I thought it would be only appropriate with the coaches on if Ryan could ask his question. Go ahead.
Yeah, say that one day we get a football team here at UNF. Would you guys commit to throwing your hat in the ring right now to help coach our lovely university to success on the field?
Absolutely, I will. As long as I have Coach Christy Sweeney to deal with my team, I'd be pretty good.
Awesome.
We'll put you down.
I'll come work for Coach Jackson if that timing is right. So we can handle the weight room for you.
All right.
We got 2.
Just FYI, we're recording this, so we will definitely get back to you on that.
Alvis, are you going to ask me if I'm okay with it? Yes, I'm okay. I'll be next to Christy.
And your wife already works here.
That's right.
You just
No, this is a great panel. I mean, with great coaches and great pedigree, and shoot, I would be on board. Obviously, timing is everything, but you know, if the timing was right and the opportunity was right, absolutely.
I have one final question, and I asked the panelists. First of all, I want to thank you. You guys have been great. I really appreciate you taking time to talk with really everyone who has been on the call. The students who are putting this together are seniors, and they're not having a graduation ceremony. So I just wondered if you very quickly could give them one piece of life advice to take with them in like 15 seconds. What would it be? And Coach Whitted, you're on the screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Don't be afraid to fail. You know, life is about adversity. You know, you're going to go through adversity. You know, just keep grinding and work, put the work in.
Thank you. Coach Hardee? Is he still on? Coach Jackson?
I would say to invest in you before you invest in anybody else.
I think that's a great piece of advice. Okay, well, thank you.
Coach Davis?
Yes, Coach Davis.
Oh, yeah, Coach Davis. He's got to have a good one.
Well, you guys always put me behind Coach Jackson. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about you. It's about serving others. It's about serving everybody else.
Great advice.
Was that contradictory to what Coach Jackson said? Is that why you...
I think it was complimentary. But
okay, that's what I thought.
Every answer that Coach Jackson has, I mean, Coach, you could have dropped the mic at any point and shut your camera off. And you set the bar high.
No doubt.
And is Coach Hardee still on?
No, he got kicked out, he said, and he's trying to get back on, but it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to let Stephanie and Denise wrap it up. And Michael?
So we want to thank all of our coaches for coming and speaking with us. Of course, we truly appreciate all of your time. So thank you, Coach Jackson, Coach Davis, Coach Whitted, and Coach Hardee for all attending and giving us all of your great words and things that we need to work on. I also want to thank my team for all of your hard work. And then also Dr. Sweeney and Dr. Whitted for your guidance and your mentorship. And then this recording will be uploaded and we'll make sure that everyone sees that in the future. And don't forget to come back next week for more of UNF Sport Management Seminars. They're on your screen right now. And be sure to look for the invites on social media, specifically LinkedIn. And everyone stay safe and healthy. Hope to see you here next week.
Yes, thank you very much,
everyone.
coaches.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome.
All right.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was so dope.
Bye, Sweeney.